We were outnumbered 100 to 1, and still won. The war was already over. At least, that's what the rest of the galaxy believed. They had seen the numbers. They had seen the fleets. They had seen the sheer scale of the enemy force. And they had done the math. 100 to 1. For every one of our ships, the enemy had 100. For every one of our soldiers, they had 1,000. To the Galactic Alliance, this wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter waiting to happen. And yet, against all logic, against all reason, we won because the enemy made one mistake. They underestimated humanity, the impossible odds. The Xiphran Empire had never lost a war. Their fleets were unstoppable. Their armies were endless. Their weapons were beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. They had conquered dozens of civilizations. They had brought entire empires to their knees, and now they had turned their eyes to Earth. To them, we were just another target, a primitive world, isolated and alone, a species that had never fought a galactic war, a species that didn't stand a chance. The Xiphrans believed their victory was inevitable. They thought their numbers guaranteed success. They thought this would be the easiest conquest in history. They were wrong, because they weren't fighting another empire. They were fighting humans, and humans don't lose. The final warning. Before the invasion began, the Xiphran High Warlord sent a final transmission to Earth, a simple message: surrender, or be annihilated. Our response: come and try. And that was the moment the war truly began. Because while they had numbers, we had something far more dangerous. We had a plan, the invasion of the unstoppable fleet. The Xiphran Empire had never lost a war. For centuries they had expanded across the galaxy, consuming world after world. Their fleets blotted out the stars. Their armies marched across planets like an unstoppable tide. Their conquests were so swift that most civilizations surrendered before the first shot was fired. And now they had come for Earth. The arrival of the Xiphran Armada. They didn't sneak in. They didn't scout our defenses. They didn't plan a strategic strike, because they didn't need to. To them, we were insignificant. A primitive world, barely capable of interstellar travel. They believed a single show of force would be enough to make us bow. And so, they arrived in full strength. 1,000 warships, carriers the size of cities, frigates, cruisers, dreadnoughts, all of them armed with enough firepower to turn a planet into dust. They came in waves, dropping out of hyperspace with terrifying precision. A force so large that our satellites struggled to count them all. And then, they sent their message. One final chance to surrender. One final chance to avoid war. They thought we'd beg. They thought we'd plead. Instead, we gave them one last warning. A single transmission broadcast across every Xiphran channel. You should have picked another target. The Xiphran confidence. The Xiphran warlords laughed. They saw our tiny fleet, barely a fraction of theirs, and mocked us. They saw our outdated ships, our smaller numbers, and believed we were fools. They ignored history. They didn't know about humanity's past wars. They didn't understand that our history was built on impossible battles. They didn't realize that our greatest strength had never been numbers or technology. It had always been our ability to win when victory seemed impossible. By cow, the time they realized their mistake, it was already too late. The first move, the Xiphrans believed we would wait, that we would hunker down, that we would stall for time. They were wrong. Before their first fleet could even form battle lines, we struck first. The Xiphran fleet had arrived. Their warships filled the void of space, a vast, endless armada of destruction. By sheer numbers alone, the battle was already decided. At least that's what they believed. But war is never just about numbers. And humans? We had other plans. The final hours before the fight, the coalition of alien species that had watched the invasion unfold had already declared us doomed. They didn't send reinforcements. They didn't send weapons. They didn't even send a message of hope. To them, Earth was already dead. The other species mourned us before the first shot was even fired. But on Earth, there was no panic, no surrender, no last-minute negotiations, only preparation, because we had known this day would come. The plan humanity kept hidden for years. We had watched as the Gyphran Empire grew. We had listened as they boasted of their invincibility. We had heard their threats, and we had prepared, not with super weapons, not with massive fleets, not with advanced technology, but with strategy, because humans don't fight fair. We fight to win. The Zyphrans didn't know what was coming. Their warships moved into position, preparing for planetary bombardment. They believed we would retreat, hide, or beg for mercy. Instead, we baited them forward. We let them think they had the upper hand. We let them believe they were dictating the battle. And at the perfect moment, we sprung the trap. The unpredictable first strike. Without warning, a human warship, the UNS Valkyrie, charged forward, one ship, alone, against 1,000. The Zyphrans laughed, but laughter turned to silence when the Valkyrie vanished from sensors. No explosion, no destruction, just gone. And then, seconds later, chaos erupted. Zyphran ships began colliding. Weapons malfunctioned. Navigation systems scrambled their fleet formations, and then humanity fired back. Not with brute force, not with numbers, but with precision. The chaos that followed. The Zyphrans were not ready for this. They had never faced an enemy that fought like us. They had always relied on their superior numbers. But now, those numbers were working against them. We hacked their communication systems. We turned their own ships against them. We jammed their sensors, forcing them to fire blindly. And as their confusion spread like wildfire, we struck. The moment they realized they had lost, the Zyphran fleet was in chaos. Their formations collapsed. Their command structure fell apart. Their warlords panicked, and that was when they truly understood. They weren't fighting just another empire. They were fighting humans, and by the time they realized their mistake, it was too late. The Zyphran fleet was invincible. At least that's what they believed. They had conquered hundreds of worlds. They had crushed countless civilizations. They had never lost. And now, they hovered over Earth, preparing for another easy victory. Then, we struck first. And in that moment, the Zyphrans realized their mistake. The first blow, the UNS Valkyrie had disappeared from their sensors. The Zyphrans assumed it had been destroyed. But humans don't go down that easily. Because the Valkyrie wasn't destroyed, it had gone dark, vanishing into the void, running on systems that Zyphran technology couldn't detect. And then, in the heart of the Zyphran fleet, it reappeared. Not alone. With dozens of stealth ships, all armed with Earth's deadliest weaponry. And before the Zyphrans could react, the war ambush began. The strike that changed everything. The first explosion didn't come from human weapons. It came from inside the Zyphran fleet. Because in the days leading up to the battle, our operatives had infiltrated their systems. We had planted malware, virus codes, and override commands. We had turned their own ships against them, and now they were detonating from within. The chain reaction of chaos, within seconds, the Zyphran fleet was in disarray. Their warships started firing at each other. Their engines malfunctioned. Their shields failed. They couldn't tell friend from foe. It was total chaos. And then, humanity opened fire. Humanity's counterattack. While the Zypherans struggled to regain control, we launched our assault. Not head-on. We fought the way humans always fight. Dirty. We targeted their supply ships first. We jammed their long-range communications. We disabled their command vessels. The Zypherans had 1,000 warships. But it didn't matter, because 1,000 blind warships are as useless as none. And within minutes, their overwhelming advantage was gone. The psychological war. For the first time in their history, the Zypherans felt something new. Fear. They had always been the predators. They had always been the unstoppable force. But now, they were the hunted. They tried to rally, tried to regroup. But we didn't let them. Because humans don't fight fair. We don't give our enemies a chance to recover. We keep hitting them and hitting them until there's nothing left. The turning point: by the end of the first battle, over 200 Zypheran ships had been destroyed. Not by superior firepower, not by advanced technology, by tactics, by precision, by turning their own strength against them. And now, for the first time in galactic history, the Zypheran Empire was losing. Their last, desperate move. The Zypheran warlords were furious. They had never been challenged like this before. They doubled their numbers. They sent in their strongest fleets. They vowed to wipe out humanity for good. And so, they launched one final attack. A strike so massive, so overwhelming, that no species in the galaxy could survive it. At least that's what they thought, because they still didn't understand. Humans don't lose. The Zypherans outnumbered us 100 to 1. They had more ships, more soldiers, and more firepower than any enemy we had ever faced. By all logic, they should have crushed us, and yet, they were losing. Because humans don't fight wars the way the galaxy expects. We don't fight for honor. We don't fight for glory. We fight for one thing: survival. And that makes us far more dangerous than any empire in the stars. War is about more than numbers. The Zypheran warlords couldn't understand how they were losing. They had planned for every scenario. They had run simulations, tested strategies, and studied past battles. They had prepared for everything, except for us, because they assumed humanity would fight like everyone else, that we would form battle lines, that we would engage in direct combat, that we would fight fair. They assumed wrong, because humans don't play by the rules of war. We rewrite them, turning the battlefield against them. The Zypheran war doctrine was built on numbers, massive fleets, overwhelming firepower, pure brute force. But brute force means nothing if you don't know where to hit. So we hit them where it hurt them most. We disrupted their supply lines. We jammed their communications. We planted false data in their targeting systems. We hacked their ship AI, turning their own weapons against them. They had 1,000 warships, but half of them couldn't even fire. The other half couldn't see their targets. And the rest? They were too busy trying to figure out what the hell was happening. The ghost ships of humanity, the Zypherans, had expected a war of fleets. They had expected massive space battles. Instead, they got something else entirely. They got phantoms in them, dark. Human ships didn't engage directly. They vanished. They appeared where they shouldn't be. They struck, then disappeared again. To the Zypheran commanders, it was madness. Entire squadrons vanished from sensors. Enemy ships exploded without warning. Their fleets moved in circles chasing ghosts, because humanity wasn't fighting a battle. We were hunting, and the Zypherans were the prey. The turning point of the war For the first time in their history, the Zyphrans were afraid. They had never faced an enemy they couldn't predict. They had never been forced to adapt. And now, they were failing. Their warships were drifting aimlessly. Their admirals were shouting conflicting orders. Their elite soldiers were dying before they could even engage in combat. The Zyphran commanders doubled their numbers. They sent in reinforcements, they threw everything they had at us, and yet, they still couldn't break us, because we weren't playing defense. We weren't holding the line. We were pushing forward, and we were winning. Psychological warfare, the final weapon. The Zyphrans weren't just losing the fight, they were losing their minds. They had never faced an enemy like us, an enemy that refused to meet them in open combat, an enemy that turned their own fleets against them, an enemy that seemed to know their every move before they made it, and worst of all, we were laughing. Every intercepted Zyphran transmission was filled with confusion. They were asking each other if the humans had some hidden fleet. They were wondering if we had secret allies. They were starting to believe we were something else entirely. Some Zyphran soldiers even began to surrender before the battle was over. They thought they were fighting gods, but they weren't. They were fighting humans, and for them, that was far worse. The final blow. The Zyphrans had only one option left. A final desperate attack. A last-ditch effort to crush us. They were bringing everything. Their strongest warships. Their greatest warriors. Their most powerful weapons. It was their final push. Their last chance to win, and so they prepared their ultimate strike. But what they didn't know was that we had been waiting for this moment, and when they finally launched their attack, we unleashed hell. The Zyphran Empire had never been pushed this far. They had never lost a battle. They had never fought a war for this long. They had never faced an enemy like humanity. And now, their entire empire was on the line. Their warlords ordered a final push, a desperate last attack to crush humanity before their forces collapsed. They were about to throw everything they had at us. But what they didn't know, we had been waiting for this moment, and when they launched their final assault, we finished the war. The last Zyphran offensive, the largest fleet in Zyphran history, was assembled. Thousands of warships, millions of soldiers, weapons capable of destroying entire planets. Their commanders were done with strategy. There would be no more tactics, no more negotiations, no more restraints, just annihilation. Either they won today, or they would never win again. Earth's defenses, not what they expected. The Galactic Alliance had once claimed that Earth was defenseless, that we didn't have the technology or the military to stand against an empire. The Zyphrans had believed that, and now, they were about to realize how wrong they were, because Earth was not just one planet. Earth was a fortress. The ambush. The Zyphrans believed they had the perfect plan. Overwhelm Earth's defenses with sheer numbers. Destroy everything in their path. Force humanity into submission. But the moment their fleet entered Earth's orbit, everything went wrong. Their engines shut down. Their weapons refused to fire. Their shields overloaded and collapsed, and then humanity attacked. The final blow. The war ended in minutes. The first wave of Zyphran warships exploded before they could fire a single shot. Their reinforcements never arrived, because we had intercepted and destroyed them before they could even reach our system. Their command structure fell apart. Their warlords tried to retreat, tried to surrender, tried to run, but there was nowhere to go, because they had walked into the perfect trap. And now, there was only one way out. Total surrender. Or extinction. The Zyphran Empire collapses. The war had been fought across dozens of systems, but once their final fleet was destroyed, everything else fell apart. Their allies abandoned them. Their occupied worlds rebelled. Their citizens turned against them, and the Zifran Empire, the most feared force in the galaxy, died overnight. All because they had made one fatal mistake. They thought numbers could beat humans. But humans don't fight for power. Humans don't fight for conquest. Humans fight to win, and that makes us unstoppable. The aftermath. For the first time in history, the galaxy was silent. There were no more warlords threatening to invade, no more alien empires trying to conquer Earth. Because now everyone knew the truth. Humanity was not weak. We were not afraid. And we had just proven that beyond any doubt. A warning to the galaxy. A single message was sent out across every galactic network. A simple broadcast. A warning. Earth is not yours to take. We do not start wars, but we will end them. And with that, the war was over. The Zifran Empire was gone, and no one dared to challenge humanity again. The Zifran Empire was collapsing. Their warships were gone, their commanders were dead. Their empire was crumbling. But some refused to accept reality. A handful of warlords, the last of the Zifran elite, gathered in the darkness of space. They still believed they could turn the tide. They still believed they had one last chance to win. And so they made their final mistake. They came back for revenge. The last warlords of Zifran. The survivors of the Zifran fleet fled to the edge of the galaxy. They sent messages to their scattered forces, calling for one final attack, one last attempt to crush humanity before it was too late. But their forces were broken. Their soldiers were afraid, and for the first time in history, their warriors hesitated. Because they had seen what humans could. They had watched their fleets vanish into nothing. They had witnessed their greatest commanders beg for mercy. And now they knew the truth. Humanity was not an enemy they could defeat. But the last Zifran warlords? They refused to accept it. The desperate plan, they gathered one final fleet, not to conquer, not to rule, but for revenge. Their target? Earth itself. Their plan was simple. Strike at Earth's core cities, launch biological weapons into the atmosphere, deploy their most powerful weapons to shatter the planet's surface. They knew they couldn't win the war, but they wanted to make humanity pay. They thought we wouldn't be ready for them. They thought we had let our guard down. They thought this would be their redemption. It was their funeral. The ambush they never saw coming. The last Zifran fleet rushed toward Earth at full speed. They had no strategy, no formation, just rage and desperation. And that was their final mistake. Because as soon as they entered Earth's system, they were surrounded. The trap that ended a species. The Zifrans thought they were attacking Earth. They didn't realize they were walking into a graveyard, because humanity had been expecting them. And this time, we weren't playing defense. This time we weren't holding the line. This time we finished it. The last battle, that wasn't a battle. The Zifran warships never got close. They never even fired a shot. Before they could break formation, before they could launch a single missile, before they could realize what was happening, they were gone. Human dreadnoughts hidden in the darkness of space fired a single coordinated strike. No explosions, no wreckage, just nothing. The last of the Zifran Empire was erased in an instant, and just like that, the war was truly over. The way Galaxy watches in silence. Every major species had watched the final battle unfold. They had seen the Zifran Empire fall. They had witnessed the warlord's last, desperate attack. And most importantly, they had seen how humanity responded. No hesitation. No diplomacy. No second chances. Humanity had been pushed too far, and when we finally struck back, we didn't leave survivors. The final lesson. The galaxy now understood one thing. You do not threaten Earth. You do not attack humans. Because if you do, you will not get a second chance. And from that moment on, war itself became a thing of the past, because no species was willing to risk what the Zypherans had. And so, for the first time in recorded history, the galaxy had true, lasting peace. All because humanity had taught them one final lesson. The Zypheran Empire was gone, not just defeated, not just scattered, erased. Every warship, every warlord, every trace of their once mighty empire. Gone. Humanity had not conquered them. We had simply removed them from existence, and in that silence, the galaxy understood. The galaxy holds its breath. The fall of the Zypheran Empire sent a shockwave across the stars. Other empires, warlords, and civilizations watched in silence. They had once believed humanity was weak, that we were insignificant, that Earth was just another world to conquer. Now they knew the truth, and none of them dared to challenge us. Not anymore, the message that ended. All wars, a single transmission was sent to every world, every system, every species in the galaxy. A message from Earth, not a threat, not a demand, a warning. Earth is not yours to take. We do not seek war. We do not seek power. But if war comes to us, we will finish it. The message ended, and the galaxy stood still. Because now, everyone knew. Humanity was not their ruler. Humanity was not their conqueror. We were something far worse. We were the species that ended wars before they began. A fear that would never fade. For the first time in history, the galaxy was truly at peace. Not because of treaties, not because of alliances, but because no one dared to fight anymore. Not after what they had seen, not after what humanity had done. The Zypherans had been the strongest empire in the galaxy, and yet, they had lasted only days against us. If the strongest empire had fallen so easily, then what hope did the others have? None. The final whisper in the dark centuries passed. The memory of the Zypheran War became legend. Few even dared to speak of it. But every once in a while, in the dark corners of the galaxy, someone would ask, "Why has there been no war in all this time?" And the answer was always the same. A whisper, a warning, a truth that had been burned into history itself. Because Earth is watching. And with that, the discussion was over. Because the truth had already been written. Humanity did not start wars. Humanity did not conquer. Humanity did not expand. But if war ever returned, humanity would finish it. And that was enough to keep the galaxy at peace. Forever.